The parable of the wedding banquet. Mathew chapter 22. Jesus spoke to them again in parables, saying, "The king of heaven is like a king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his servants to those who had been invited to the banquet to tell them to come, but they refused to come. Then he sent some more servants and said, 'Tell those who have been invited that I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fattened cattle have been butchered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet.' But they paid no attention and went off, one to his field, another to his business. The rest seized his servants, mistreated them, and killed them. The king was enraged. He sent his army and destroyed those murderers and burned their city. Then he said to his servants, 'The wedding banquet is ready, but those I invited did not deserve to come. So go to the street corners and invite to the banquet anyone you find.' So the servants went out into the streets and gathered all the people they could find, the bad as well as the good, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes. He asked, 'How did you get in here without wedding clothes, friend?' The man was speechless. Then the king told the attendants, 'Tie him hand and foot and throw him outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are invited, but few are chosen.'" In this parable, Jesus compares heaven to a wedding banquet that a king had prepared for his son. Many people were invited. The king is God the Father, and the Son who is being honored at the banquet is Jesus Christ. The king's reprisal against the murderers can be interpreted as a prophecy of Jerusalem's destruction in AD 70 at the hands of the Romans. More broadly, the king's vengeance speaks of the desolation mentioned in the book of Revelation. God is patient, but he will not tolerate wickedness forever. His judgment will come upon those who reject his offer of salvation. Considering what that salvation cost Jesus, is not this judgment well deserved? Note that it is not because the invited guests could not come to the wedding feast, but that they would not come. Everyone had an excuse. How tragic and indicative of human nature to be offered the blessings of God and to refuse them because of the draw of mundane things. The wedding invitation is extended to anyone and everyone, total strangers, both good and bad. This refers to the gospel being taken to the Gentiles. This portion of the parable is foreshadowing of the Jews' rejection of the gospel in Acts 13. Just as the king provided wedding garments for his guests, God provides salvation for mankind. Our wedding garment is the righteousness of Christ, and unless we have it, we will miss the wedding feast. Christ concludes the parable with the sad fact that many are invited, but few are chosen. In other words, many people hear the call of God, but only a few heed it. To summarize the point of the parable of the wedding feast, God sent his Son into the world, and the very people who should have celebrated his coming rejected him, bringing judgment upon themselves. As a result, the kingdom of heaven was opened up to anyone who will set aside his own righteousness and by faith accept the righteousness God provides in Christ. Those who spurn the gift of salvation and cling instead to their own good works will spend eternity in hell. The self-righteous Pharisees who heard this parable did not miss Jesus' point. In the very next verse, the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him. In his words, in Matthew 22:15. The parable of the wedding feast is also a warning to us to to make sure we are relying on God's provision of salvation, not our own good works or religious service.